Today's show is for both entrepreneurial and corporate executives as we unpack the ins and outs of business exits, what to do, how to prepare, what not to do, and the pitfalls. This is Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, your host for The Voice of Leadership and for Dr. Karen Speaks Leadership. If you've ever wondered about business mergers and acquisitions, then stay tuned. Today's guest is an amazing entrepreneur, innovator, and experienced business executive who has successfully exited several high-end entrepreneurial businesses. Today, we get firsthand information from someone whose strategies, advice, and counsel have also been successfully implemented by other business executives. My special guest, Mr. Antonio Colon, served his country for 20 years in the U.S. Air Force, first as a jet engine mechanic and then as an astronautical engineer. Educated at the University of Mississippi with a degree in aerospace engineering, his Air Force space-related roles included the Strategic Defense Initiative Organization's Star Wars program, mission controller for the Fleet Satellite Communication Constellation, chief ground-based software configuration manager for the high-profile space-based surveillance system called Defense Support Program, and acquisition officer for the construction and integration of satellite communication systems. 5 years prior to completing his military service, Mr. Colon founded Martinelli Realty Incorporated, initially focused on the sale of HUD-A repossessions and property management for homes owned by relocated military personnel. Martinelli Realty later moved to commercial real estate sales and leasing until Mr. Colon successfully sold the company in 2000. In 1998, Mr. Colon translated his passion for the sport of paintball into the startup of Splat Masters Paintball, Inc. His engineering designs and manufacture of paintball-related equipment brought innovation to the sport nationally and worldwide. Mr. Colon successfully sold the paintball business in 2006. After the September 11th disaster and before the escalating war in Iraq, Mr. Colon, a native New Yorker and a service-disabled veteran, understood the complexities of war and the intense training required to ensure the safety and preparation of our warfighters and first responders. He leveraged his knowledge of engineering, manufacturing, business, and the specialized effects he used in the paintball business to form Combat Training Solutions Incorporated to enhance military training and to help save the lives of warfighters. Admired and respected by the international modeling and simulation industry, CTS won many awards for their life-saving designs that emulate IEDs, improvised explosive devices, and today these battlefield special effects devices are used by the military and law enforcement nationwide and in 16 foreign countries. In 2011, Mr. Colon sold CTS to Siloam Technologies, a publicly traded company based in West Springfield, Massachusetts. Mr. Colon's many awards include the 2020 Colorado Small Businessperson Award and, for CTS, the Military Technology Magazine's Top Innovator Award for 5 consecutive years and the ColoradoBiz Magazine's 2011 Top 50 Colorado Minority-Owned Companies. Today, Mr. Colon is a recreational helicopter pilot. He volunteers as an aircraft mechanic at a local flight club. He is a 5th-degree black belt in Okinawan Goju Karate, consults with both startup and seasoned business CEOs and executives to prepare for exit, and enjoys life with his wife Linda of more than 32 years, his 2 daughters, and his 3 grandsons. Welcome, Tony, to the Voice of Leadership and to Dr. Karen Speaks Leadership.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk with you today.
Oh, yes, I'm delighted to speak with you because you're talking about some things that are timely and relevant and interesting in the business world. So, before we just launch in and talk about the business exits and acquisitions, Tony, I want to ask you a little bit more about your career because, in your case, you've managed to merge a lot of interesting skills and interests from entrepreneurial business to engineering, technology, aerospace, the military and so much more. So, how did you get into all of these fields and end up pursuing this career with both the military and entrepreneurship?
Well, I have to thank my father for that. He used to say, there's a saying that I really dislike: Jack of all trades, master of none. And he challenged me. He says, you be Jack of all trades and master at least one. So I took that to heart. And he said that to me when I was 14 years old. And at that age, I started learning car mechanics. I was an accomplished mechanic by the age of 15. And I could do anything from paint it to tear the thing apart and build it up again. So I found that I had an inclination towards engineering, towards design, how things work. And I've always had that kind of propensity. When I was even younger, I saw the landing on the moon and I said, I'm going to be an astronaut. So I kept that in mind. And in high school, I went to the Civil Air Patrol and I started learning about aircraft and what lift and drag is and spacecraft, what rocketry is. And I took that as a hobby. And then I decided, okay, I can't afford college and I didn't know about loans. Nobody in my family has ever been to college. So I enlisted, became a jet engine mechanic. And after a couple of years of that, I said, I can fix these. I'd rather design them. So the Air Force sent me to college to finish my aerospace engineering degree under a program called Airman's Education and Commissioning Program with the Air Force Institute of Technology. And that's how I ended up first at the University of Florida in Gainesville and then at Mississippi State, where I finished my degree. Then the shuttle blew up. So when the Challenger blew, they closed the schools, and Flight Test Engineer School in Arizona was closed. And they said, Cologne, you're going to Colorado and you're going to close the space shuttle simulator there. My first engineering project in the Air Force was actually destroying my dream. I did that, as you mentioned before. I worked the Star Wars program, one of many programs that I had been involved with. It just ends up that I have a propensity for doing different things. And in engineering, you're taught not everything about math and physics and everything. You don't know everything. You just know where to find the answers. And that's what I've done. So throughout my career, I have found the answers to problems. I'm a troubleshooter. And that's what I've done. I've simply followed the trend. What is needed of me? And that's what I've concentrated on in my career.
What an amazing history. And thank you for sharing that backstory with us because I think that's quite compelling. And it really relates to what we're going to be talking about today because we're looking for some answers on this subject of business exits, and there are all kinds of problems to troubleshoot in that as well. So let me ask you about one. You have started and sold at least three businesses. So what have you found that prospective business owners fail to do when starting a business or creating a business plan?
Oh, that's easy. Time and time again, I come across business owners that simply have not even thought about the exit. They simply haven't planned about the exit, not even placing it in their business plan. Where is my exit? That's the short answer.
Well, let me follow up on that. So, first of all, when should they start thinking about the exit, and how would they build the business with the exit in mind?
Bottom line, day one, the thought that you have to start a business, you should be knowing when, how long you want to do that business, when you're going to exit comes up as a result of that thought. The first thing you do is say, let's have a little example. I'm going to start a restaurant and I want to sell mama's pastries that she's always made and everybody will love it. How's that? The next thing out of your mouth should be, how long am I going to do that? And that's how soon. That's how soon. It should be the very, very beginning of your conversation to yourself and to others and investors about how long this is going to go on. How do you intend to make investors money? They only make money usually when you exit, if you actually take money from investors, venture capitalists, and such.
So, what if a person is running a business and they don't need venture capital money or whatever, and they don't have investors? My guess is they probably still need an exit plan. So, what are some of the components of an appropriate exit plan?
Most assuredly, they do need an exit plan. A lot of them are thinking, well, this is a family business, so I'm going to leave it to my children and hopefully my child will take over. Well, you actually sell the business to your child. Part of the exit plan should be the simple who, what, when, where, why, and how. Okay. You answer all those questions. What is the business about? When is the business going to get to the point where I can sell it? And the easiest way to explain this is for you to think of what you want upon becoming financially independent. What kind of financial security do you want? So annually, I want to make $500,000 passively after I sell. That $500,000 means that you must build a business of, let's say you make 5% per million. Well, that means you have to make $50,000 per million to get to 500,000. That's 10 times 50. You need a $10 million business. You need to sell it for $10 million. So if you're going to build that pastry business, you better build a $10 million pastry business before you sell. And you determine how long that's going to take you. There are other factors to that, but those are the basics.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of forethought that has to go into this situation, a lot of numbers you have to think about and you have to project and you have to run in your mind and on paper in order to figure this out, which is great because a lot of people aren't thinking about that at the outset of the business. And what you're saying is just as important as the start is also the finish or the exit. So on that line, let's talk about what's the one thing that increases the valuation of the business, because that's going to be important so far as how well you can sell it on the back end.
The main thing that will increase the valuation of the business is documenting everything about it. How it is that you bring in revenue, all the way to the very minutia. And the reason I say that, a lot of business owners would say, well, Tony, that's a large endeavor. And I'd tell them, well, when you decide on exiting your M&A company, and recognize that M&A companies, they deal with companies that have a revenue of 5 million and above. Business brokers typically sell businesses that are less valued than that. But this applies for all businesses. When you decide on selling your business, you have to create a book, and a book that everyone sees and reads. And the more detailed that book is, the more value the buyer will give to your business. You're going to have to do it sometime. And the worst time to do it is when you make that decision to exit.
Yeah, it's a lot of work at that point. Whereas if you're doing it all along and as you go along, then it's easier because you've been capturing that information. And I'm imagining that one of the reasons this is so valuable is because if you've got all of this documented, that business is repeatable. Somebody can come in, not be you, and they can make that business work and become even more profitable without having to go back and reinvent the wheel that you already started.
That's exactly right. Many employees of the business that you sell will leave. If that business is not well documented, the new owner is left in a lurch. Many times, it ends up in court sometimes when employees leave and suddenly the business can't even proceed because the business is surrounded a certain employee or employee's tasks that only the employee knows.
Yeah, so they walk out of that business with a lot of intellectual property or knowledge about how to do things. So, what else are some of the important aspects of a business that increases the valuation at the time of sale? We talked about documentation. What else is important for business owners to keep on their radar early on?
If you want to make money in business, I'll remind you of Collins' book, Good to Great. Okay. One of the things that he was talking about that I agree completely about is the hedgehog effect. A business owner should be more like a hedgehog and not let outside forces come in and redirect you into efforts that you're not really competent in, but will make you money. So one of the things that I think that a business owner should do is avoid taking a concentration of their funds in doing things that they're not very competent in, unless they structure their business in a business unit kind of format where they create a business unit to go do this, a business unit to go do that. And that helps their growth, at least the revenue growth. That hedgehog effect should be something that you really take to heart and not allow businesses from outside to affect you. And a quick story about that: when it came to combat training solutions, I worked with companies like Lockheed and Raytheon. They would ask me, "Hey Tony, could you go out and buy this for this contract?" I was in counter IED work, manufacturing products for counter IED and training soldiers on how to identify IED, how to set up the products, how to detonate them, and in a simulation environment, how to make a realistic environment. I wasn't in the business of, per se, buying AK-47s, although I had a federal firearms license that allowed me to do that. So when I was placed in that position, the money's quick money. They'll say, hey, just spend $2 million, buy AK-47s, and provide them for this contract. And I would say, well, I'm not an arms dealer per se. What will you do with bombs? And I go, yeah, non-pyrotechnic bombs, you know. And I would reject those kinds of offers because it would set me up for further work in that environment. I'd lose the central reason of why I was there, save lives, educate soldiers and military from other countries and policemen from this country on how to identify IED, et cetera, et cetera. That's something that a business should do, is reject distractions, focus. Well, another thing is educating employees about what the business is.
Yeah, this is really important what you're talking about. This whole business of being focused and not allowing yourself to dissipate, if you will, your
Mhm.
resources, your energy, or to have a huge mission drift, if you will. So, say more about what it is that business owners should instill in their employees so that the employees also understand the purpose and why of the business.
And today, I believe we've gotten away from this mission, vision, and culture type of environment where that is what the business is about. But I believe in that still today. I can see that businesses have gotten away from mission, vision, and culture, education for the employees, because the employees are what drive your business. If they don't understand your mission, vision, and your culture, they're going to drive you to other things. I'm a great believer that the CEO of the company should become more of a CEO in driving the company's growth than wearing so many different hats that it stifles the growth of their company. But with that comes a lot of employees, and those employees have their own thoughts of how things should work. So, as a CEO, you should educate your employees. This is the way I want it to work. And this is my mission, my vision and my culture that I want you to adopt. A lot of this goes to when you're hiring people, what kind of people they are. I can teach the mission, I can teach the vision, but the culture, we have to share a culture. It's very important.
You're saying several things that are really key here, and that is it's really about leadership. If you're the CEO of this business, you have a vision of what you want and what you're trying to achieve, and you have to convey that to people in such a way that is compelling so that the right people get attracted and the wrong people realize this is not the place for them. Maybe they should go somewhere else and do something else, as opposed to the CEO being scattered and trying to do too many things and maybe not doing any of them very well. That's what I'm hearing you say in part.
Absolutely right. I'm a great believer that the CEO should be able and willing to empty the garbage out as well as build the rocket. I believe the CEO should be that in tune with the business. However, you're not going to grow the business if you're doing those things. You have to be the visionary that hires the right people to get your vision accomplished. That's why one of my greatest heroes, Elon Musk, the Tony Stark of our era, because he's that kind of guy. He will get down and dirty, do the work of building things as well as sit back and grow a business by being a good CEO.
You've been alluding to the fact that very often, even though a CEO should have the mindset that they could empty the trash and do all these other things and build whatever, that indeed they really shouldn't be doing all of these tasks. They should be hiring
Right.
other people. And yet, a lot of entrepreneurs, as you've been implying, they get stuck, wearing too many hats, being chief cook and bottle washer and so on and so forth. How does that happen? What prevents them from bringing in the right people to serve in all these roles?
Great question. Ego is the first thing that comes to mind. You can't do it as well as I can. I don't know how to convey to you how important this is. Therefore, I'll do it. I don't want to pay for it. That happens. I don't think I can handle building someone else's career, being responsible for other people. Entrepreneurs are thinking about all these things, and some simply don't think, they act. They simply say, hey, we got to hire this guy, that guy, and this guy. And once we have 50 employees, we'll start this baby, So let me go get venture capital and I'll get the idea out. The business plan is solid. My presentation's solid. And I'll get all this money and hire all these people and we're good to go. That doesn't happen all the time. Most of the time, businesses are started by individuals that have a light bulb over their head. An idea goes off and they are just so enthused about their idea that someone else hears it and reinforces to them that they can start a successful business doing that. and they just go all in, get their boots wet up to the very edge and sometimes over, and fill their boots with water. And suddenly, if they don't plan right and all this, they get underwater and they close. That's what happens mostly to small businesses, startups. But if they plan right and they understand that they cannot do this alone, then they'll hire the right people to begin with. But inevitably, they will have other hats that they're wearing. Today's environment is very good because you can use the internet to help you in every way. Anything from accounting to bookkeeping to human resource and all that. It's easier, but the lack of education of a prospective owner, the lack of good consultation, that is what keeps businesses from becoming successful from day one.
Yes, and I have this sense that many businesses are, as they grow and they're gaining more revenue along the way, they are making decisions about who else to add, what kinds of employees they need, and so on. And some businesses I find are fearful of taking that leap when it may seem as though they can't afford to hire this next person, when in reality, they can't afford not to hire this next person. So when you think about it, think about, you're the trapeze star and you're flying through the air, and for a couple minutes there, you're flying without any anchoring before you grab the next rung. So what would you share with entrepreneurs about how to navigate that space in there where you're flying out there and you don't know what's going to happen?
Well, speaking of flying, I'm consulting for a company that when I met the owner, I asked the typical questions, what are you doing? What do you want? Where do you want to go with this? What's your true desire? And I let them talk. And then one of those questions ends up being, what's your revenue? I get an answer with this one owner. I have a $2 million revenue. I've been in business for 18 months. Everything's looking rosy. I have assets. I then ask him, what do you need me for? And he says, I have people telling me that I'm doing it the wrong way. And he listened to those people. And he reached out to me and I went to him and I said, yeah, you're doing it the wrong way. How wrong am I? You're so wrong that if your door is closed tomorrow, it doesn't surprise me. So after I learned a bit about his business, I come to find out that literally the guy had 20 hats on. If you had a pictorial and made a cartoon about this, he'd have a hat, said accountant, lawyer, bookkeeper, garbage owner, the janitor, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And these hats are just weighing his head down. He can't think straight. But the business that he's doing is so good and so highly sought after that he can make money at it. The problem is, can I continue to make money at it? Can I build a credible business that someone else will look in and say, hey, I want that? So then you can sell it and become financially independent. And after becoming financially independent, doing whatever it is that you want to do, inclusive of starting the very same kind of business and competing against the guy that you sold the business to. That's the kind of thing you have to keep in mind. That's what I come across a lot.
Hi, this is Dr. Karen, dropping into today's show to remind you that one of the most important roles of an executive leader is to quickly make big and right decisions for the business. Are you looking for an experienced and trusted advisor to come alongside you as a thinking partner as you make those decisions? Then contact me at Dr. Karen, Karen, at transleadership.com. Now, back to the show. Okay, so this hampers businesses from growing and being successful increases the likelihood that they may have to close their doors prematurely if that CEO, founder, owner person is wearing so many hats. So let's talk a little bit about the attracting and recruiting and developing of key people for the business, because I know you have some perspectives on that. Because when an acquirer is coming into the picture, they want a company that's got some good people, because that's all part of the value. So how would you advise companies to get those best people, develop and retain them?
I'm a great believer in organic. Grow people from within the company. Having said that, at the beginning, you have to hire right. So what's hiring right? I believe culture is everything. If the person shares your culture, then you can teach. But I can't have a business with a bunch of beginners and be successful. I need experienced people. So while there will be experienced people coming to you, the optimum employee candidate is one that shares your culture and that you really like right off the bat. That isn't plastic, that is malleable, that can be molded, but has the credentials and the experience. Many times we have to hire people that we don't like, but are really good at what they do. The problem with that, or the thing you have to do with that kind of hire, is you have to expect that they'll be gone within a couple of years. So you put a dead date on that and you hire behind that. It's an asset management kind of attitude that you have to have as a CEO. And the people that hire for you, if you're large enough to have somebody do the hiring for you, they have to understand that sometimes you have to bring expertise in for a period of time because they're only going to be around for a short amount of time. And the younger they are, the more that's true because they're upward mobile and they want to gain experience as well as fodder for the next higher paying job. So you have your work cut out for you continuously in hiring a ladder of people. And while I like hiring people that I can grow from within the company, reality is that you're going to have to hire the experience, and that experience has a clock. And you better know what that clock is and hire behind that. Okay. So you don't have these key holes in your business. You know, key people, I call them key holes in the ground because if they're gone, it's terrible. And if I may, I'll give you a quick story of one of my clients that did not take my advice. He received an offer. He wasn't even on the market. He received an offer for $10 million on his business, which he turned down, unbeknownst to me. He tells me this. And after he's done it, I asked him, why'd you do that? He says, well, they have no experience in our type of business. And what did I say? They don't need to know anything about your business. They're buying that. That is what they're buying. He says, I have to secure the future of my employees. And I said, your employee will give you a 2 weeks notice and leave you after you training them for 2 years. You don't secure employees' future. You build a business the best way you can with love and heart and passion, a lot of organization, and you sell it for your financial independence. Yes, you want to build careers. Yes, you want people to be happy. Yes, you want them to have 401ks. Yes, you want them to be financially independent as well. But when you sell your business, it's all about you, baby. If you do not think that, you're going to fail. Well, he turned this business owner down and he closed 4 years later. Biggest criticism about the construction of his business, it was one key employee. If that key employee left, he'd have no business. Most of his revenue would be gone,
Mm.
and it would not be worth what he thought it was worth. You see? And guess what happened? That key employee left, and he was treated very well. Good pay, had the run of the place. Heck, I thought he was a CEO at first, you know, but that person left, and there goes his business. 4 years later, closed his doors.
This is really an important cautionary tale that you're sharing right now because as the CEO of a business, you are thinking of a much broader and wider system than any one person. And this laddering effect that you're talking about, it's like the whole notion of not putting all of your eggs in one basket. And you're not hiring these replacements after those key people are gone. They're already in the company and ready to go with the laddering approach that you're talking about. And I think many people don't imagine that. They probably think, well, we can't afford to have that redundancy or this person ready to fill in that slot. And so they don't do it. And then they're stuck in a situation like this where the business goes down the tubes because there really is no backfill in place. That's what I'm hearing you say, that that is truly a risk factor.
Yeah, and remember the story I told you about the business owner that had the $2 million revenue, but no employees. Today, after about a year and a half of consulting for him, he has about 20 employees. He has redundancy. He has had a turnover, a significant turnover, because he's learning about these things. Who do I hire? Why do I hire them? Why do I keep them? Why do I let them go? And he's being proactive about this. The lessons learned is there. We should learn this before we get into business. But then if you burden a lot of people with these kinds of things, they won't even start a business because they'll get discouraged. It is a very large endeavor. And reality is that many times you shouldn't open a business because you don't have the fortitude to do it. And it's better for you to work for someone else.
That's important to know because not everyone is wired for the entrepreneurial life. And you better know that up front in terms of what's going to be required of you and the decisions you have to make along the way. Let me shift gears a little bit because we were talking about acquisitions. And in one of the examples you shared, someone came with an offer and wanted to buy the business. Sometimes people come when they're not being solicited. And then there are other times, as the business owner, you put the business on the market or in the right places so that potential acquirers would get interested and make offers, do the due diligence, and so on. But what's your take on that whole process? Should a business wait for someone to come to them? Are there advantages for them pursuing on their own? Does it matter? Wisdom and counsel on that.
Well, remember what I told you at the onset. When you're building a business, you should have an exit plan.
Yes.
Well, every plan's meant to change, right? You have a fundamental understanding of what you need financially to be independent. So that's not going to change. However, if a buyer comes around that's going to meet those requirements, go for it because you know what it is that you want. That's why, remember the hedgehog effect? If
Mhm.
someone came into my business and said, hey, I know you sell simulation equipment and you do training, but I want you to make a movie and you're going to yield this much money out of the movie and it's guaranteed. Well, I'm going to go do the movie because it meets my financial goals. There's a lot of emotion wrapped around businesses and all that. And I love that. I love businesses. I get passionate about business. Doesn't matter what kind of business. Someone asks me, look into my business and tell me what's what. I get really passionate about it. but I'm not the one that's going to reap the financial independence that that business plan is talking about, that exit plan is talking about. It's that guy, that other guy, the owner. I can get real passionate, but I don't have the consequence. That owner has the consequence. So he better figure that what he put on that paper said, hey, this is what I want when I retire. This is the kind of money I want. This is the kind of life I want. And it's all about financial independence. So you can do what really helps society, helps your family, helps you gain a longer life because business will take life away from you unless you run it really well. And this is where passion comes in because passion in a business affords you good health. It affords you happiness, you know, but the financial worries take life away. So I want to build an M&A team that early on knows who I am, what I am, and where I'm going, and watches from afar, you see. And Tony's going to be here in 5 years, you see. So how about getting to be proactive rather than reactive? So I'm all for building an M&A team, transition attorneys, CPAs that know what they're doing in transition and give them the business, the continual business, you know, but they're CPAs that understand transitions, you see. And I'm all for doing that early on. So they watch and know what your business is doing. So when these opportunities arise, they're ready to jump on and analyze it for you and give you that advice, whether you should do it or not.
This is really important what you're saying because it's all about the financial independence and the financial numbers at the end of the day. And you can't allow yourself to get hijacked by some of these side concerns, as you're saying. So ideally, you have others looking out for the acquirer because they know what your metrics are, they know what your objectives and goals are. They're intimately involved with the company. They know when you're likely to hit that target and when you're ready to sell. Yet, if someone does come and they want to pay what you're looking for, then go for it. It's a win-win either way. So now let's say whichever way that this acquisition happens, whether completely by plan or somebody comes along, now that it's a done deal, so to speak, the transaction's gone through, how do you inform the existing company? What are some best practices there for informing the employees about what's going down?
My belief that you should not inform employees until the deal is done.
Mhm.
And that has a caveat in that there are certain key employees that have a profit share, for instance, that you need to remain with the company for a period of time at least. Those people may and should be informed to help you with the analysis, to help you with the sale. So you said your example was that it's a done deal, the transaction's happening. If the sale is already done,
Mhm.
um, you would hope that those key employees are informed a bit so they don't up and leave before you complete the sale. Every M&A deal dies 5 times before it closes. That's one of
Yes.
those monikers, 5 times it's going to fail. Somebody's going to say, oh, forget it. I'm not buying it. Oh, forget it. I'm not going to sell it to him, So you can expect that kind of stress, right? Every deal takes a couple of years to sell. It doesn't happen like that. But my belief is that for the general populace of the employee base, they are informed. I was just informed by my son-in-law that his business, Cheney Brothers, was bought by PFGC as Performance Food Group, and they knew on Wednesday. I just looked them up. I didn't know who Performance Food Group is. I know who Cheney is, and they're a private company. And he was surprised. And he's an executive in the business.
He found out
How
after the fact or just before it went down?
after the fact?
Just after the
After
fact.
the fact. Yeah.
Okay.
As soon as Wall Street knew, he knew. And the stock went up yesterday about, it was 63 and a half and closed at 74 something in one day. So I looked at it and I go, well, that's pretty neat. The employee finds out, the executive finds out after, and he now makes a decision. Do I really want to work for this company or not? He says, nothing's going to change. I still do my work. It's just the owners that took their money and left. That's what you want. You want the employee saying, oh, that's nice for the owners. Great. My job's secure, you know?
So I would imagine that it's important to, in this announcement, to talk about those kind of factors, what's remaining the same, what isn't, or anything that they might be interested in, because it will affect the employees' decisions about whether they stay or go and so on and so forth.
Yeah. My personal experience has been with combat training solutions anyway. None of the factory employees in Georgia wanted to leave. The factory was being moved to Massachusetts. So what I did was I took the key employees that knew the operation and made them a sweet deal. And they went to Massachusetts for a while and put everything in place, assembly lines in place, and all that knowledge was transferred to the new folks in Massachusetts, and they took over. But none of the employees felt bad. None of the employees for Combat Training Solutions felt bad. They felt it was something, just a normal progression in Combat Training Solutions life. And they would have loved to be part of it. We were one of the highest paid employers in the area, and they had plenty of work to do around their home environment. So I didn't get not one saying that it was a bad thing for them. So my experience was a good one. And I did not advise them that we were selling the business at that time, but I had told them all throughout that time in different conversations and briefings. I'd stand in front of them monthly and tell them where the business is going and show them charts and pictures and videos of things that we've done to save lives and all that. And I tell them, when I sell this business, I'm going to be a wealthy man, and you help me get there. So these are the kinds of things that I'm doing for you. 401k, medical, all these things. You see? So I would communicate to them, I'm selling this business,
Yeah, so it was
this
not a
is a,
surprise. Yeah, it wasn't a
yeah,
surprise.
right. So it's a culture thing.
Mhm.
Again, it's a culture thing. How do you grow it?
Let me ask this, because even if you do everything right, okay, you've got the best practices in place, you've shared these intentions up front. With acquisitions, there are often pitfalls. What are some of the pitfalls that can happen? What can the entrepreneur do to be prepared for the unexpected? And share even some pitfalls you've experienced in going through this process.
The valuation of the business is a big deal. When you seek an M&A company, the first thing they're going to say is, we need to evaluate you. You're not going to tell us what your business is worth. We'll let you know what that is. And you're going to pay for that. Yeah, you could pay upfront, depending on the size of the business. A $5 million or $6 million business, 70,000, 100,000 to get a valuation accomplished. It takes time. It takes months. It takes individuals that'll get into your business from that M&A company, put their nose in there and find out what that business is about. That's why documentation ahead of time is so important, because you could hand them a book, you see, and that will end up costing less time and less money. So the pitfalls are that your documentation has to be provided. You as the CEO must be involved dramatically and daily in that process. So it takes you away from other things that you're doing. You cannot assign an executive to do this work. You must be involved. Yeah, you can have them do all the legwork, but you're going to have to be involved in building a schedule just as if it was another program that you're managing, and you follow that schedule. And that's one of the biggest pitfalls is time management for the CEO and those in bigger companies, 3 or 4 other people that are going to be very involved in it. The time it takes to prepare it, just to be presented in a way that doesn't expose all of your business's information to, say, a competitor, and only when it's solid that you know that this is a real buyer, that this is one that you can trust will pursue the transaction, do you open everything to that business. So that's another thing, is a pitfall, providing too much information, where now you gave them all of the ingredients to make that cookie batter, and all they have to do is go cook it. So you might be giving away too much, you see. So that's a pitfall. Then personalities get in the way. That's why I like building a team way ahead of time. Know who your attorney is going to be. They know you. And like I said before, your CPA, your M&A, those kind of people, knowing them, and they know you. So they won't recommend opportunities that really don't fit you and stretch what you're about and where you're going with the business, and how much and all of that. Building a team, the strain that it takes to build a good team.
It's worth it, it sounds like, because the price you
Mhm.
might pay by not having a good team in so many ways is problematic. It really is worth it to do the work necessary to build a good team. Let me ask a couple other things here because we're sort of winding down to a close. I could talk to you for a whole nother hour. When you are talking to CEOs today and others who you're consulting and they're benefiting from your expertise, what are some of the most common challenges and problems that are emerging today in businesses that are trying to go through this exit process, maybe even different than what you experienced, maybe even something that's you seeing more or less of because of the times that we're in?
One of the things that strikes me, it's dumbfounding sometimes, is that business owners aren't well educated about finance. And it's just that way. It's dumbfounding. 99% of the business owners I've talked to and been involved with don't know what EBITDA is: earnings before interest, taxation, deductions, and amortization.
Yes.
That is what truly evaluates your business. If you do not know that, how are you going to build a business that increases your EBITDA to meet the needs that you have of that $500,000 that you want a year in income passively after you sell your business? How? I spend a lot of time educating them about that. And that doesn't take a long time, but what does is, why do you pay your wife 3 times what a normal bookkeeper be paid? And oh, well, that's a way to get money out of the business. Oh, okay. But guess what you're going to do when you evaluate your business? You're going to reverse that. So your EBITDA goes up. Okay. So it's okay that you're doing that. You're the boss. You can pay whomever whatever you want. But we now need to reverse that and have wages, common wages. Okay. And not have those familial hits, to your EBITDA, and that will help your evaluation. So I educate them about those kinds of things. That's striking to me, that ignorance of finances. For instance, let's say you have a business worth $10 million and it brings in a revenue of about $30 million. What's the disconnect there? Well, why is my business only worth 10 million if my revenue is 30? Well, what's your EBITDA? How much of that do you keep? So is your EBITDA 0.3 or 0.5 or 1? You know, That's the kind of education that you get. And you should pursue that all the time. And if you know that, you know whether you're going to get into more business, whether you're doing well or you're not doing well. It's not about revenue. It's not all about revenue. It's about EBITDA.
Okay, so there's a science to it, and people need to learn what that is,
Oh,
including
yeah.
the financial education along the way. So, how can
Mhm.
people reach you, Tony, to maybe they want to consult with you and they're thinking about their exit at the beginning or near the end?
Well, I love to help. All they have to do is call or email me at tc@colonfam.com. So it's TC, Tony Colon, at my last name, COLON, and FAM.com.
Thank you. And so, what additional, because you've shared a lot of really good information here, what additional words of wisdom would you like to share with my community of business executives, including anything that's relevant for that corporate executive who's in the Fortune 500 company that may be going through an M&A process?
I have my mantra: do everything in good measure and adjust to situation. If you follow that, you will be able to adjust to anything that comes along because you trust yourself, you trust your decisions, and you surround yourself with the best people that you can. You have to believe that the outcome is going to be positive. If you believe that, it will become positive. That's the nugget of knowledge that I can give you.
I love that. So a lot of how we think about things influences what really actually happens along the way. And
Mhm.
so, and the preparation. You've been talking about the preparation all along here today. So thank you, Tony, for coming to the show today and sharing your wisdom, your expertise, your experience. I know that a lot of people are better off as a result of what you've had to share.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed the conversation. I hope you'll have me back.
Oh, I'd love to have you back. That would just be a delight and a joy. So consider it done, okay? So,
Okay.
what I like to share with our audience today and with the community is two verses I think are very relevant to the conversation Tony and I have been having. And this is Proverbs, the 24th chapter, verses 5 through 6. It says, "A wise man is strong. Yes, a man of knowledge increases strength. For by wise counsel you will wage your own war, and in a multitude of counselors there is safety." So we have heard from Tony today lots of ways to put some safeties in place as you build the business of your dreams and sell it for the profit that you're looking for. So if you don't have that wise counsel around you, be sure to contact Tony to get a little input on what to do next. So thank you for being here. We'll see you next time. Hi, this is Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, and today I'm with Pastor Ben Anderson, the Executive Director of the Solid Rock Community Development Corporation. They're doing great work in Southeast Colorado Springs, and today he's going to talk about what they're doing to ensure generational wealth in the community.
Thank you, Dr. Kern. We have purchased commercial property, and the objective is to create generational wealth in families. This property is a tool where residents can invest in the property and then they receive the dividends from it. The dividends are the lease payments that businesses operate in that commercial property. Those dividends can then be passed along to their family, their children, and this is how we create wealth in our communities through property ownership, through commercial ownership, through land ownership. And so we have impacting families in Southeast Colorado Springs.
Thank you so much, Pastor Ben, for what you and your organization are doing to ensure that families thrive for the long haul in multiple generations. And it's also a passive income stream. Isn't that phenomenal? So you out there listening today, if you'd like to contribute to this great effort, please go to solidrockcdc.com. That's solidrockcdc.com. You've been listening to The Voice of Leadership with me, Dr. Karen Wilson Starks. And I want to give a special thanks to jazz saxophonist Ron McMillan for granting us permission to use his gifted music on our show. Thanks for listening, and remember to go to my website, transleadership.com, for more strategies, insights, and leadership resources.